The Oilers roll and McDavid leads the way. We've got Stanley Cup playoff action to talk about right now on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL. We are available 7 days a week wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He Shukri writes, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast. Together, we are here to discuss all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night, or in this case, the day, I guess, of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We had a rare afternoon game to talk about, afternoon East Coast time anyway. What's up, Shu? You ready to talk some hockey?
I mean, extra rare. I mean, more rarer than a rare steak for Memorial Day weekend barbecuers that are out there. But I tell you one thing that is barbecued right now, the Stars. And it definitely showed up today in Edmonton.
Yeah, we're going to preview Game 4 between the Panthers and Hurricanes. Also going to have another edition of Locked On Game Night Q&A. But, of course, we start with Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. The series shifting to Edmonton. The Oilers hosting the Stars. A pivotal Game 3 as they split the two games in Dallas. Stars rallied in the third period to win Game 1 6-3. Oilers a 3-0 shutout in Game 2. What will we see in Game 3? Well, Connor McDavid and the Oilers turning it up for a 6-1 victory and a 2-1 lead in the series. Let's get a report from the winning side. We start with a host of Locked On Oilers.
Are 2 wins away from returning to the Stanley Cup final for the second straight season. Nick Zararis of Locked On Oilers here after a convincing 6-1 win. The Oilers put together one of their best efforts of the postseason in a game where they got to the counterattack very quickly. A lot of rush opportunities, a lot of one-on-ones. Connor McDavid again giving Thomas Harley, who by all accounts is one of the best defensemen in the world, was arguably the best defenseman at the Four Nations faceoff, and McDavid has him out of sorts. The Oilers did a magnificent job in this game of absorbing pressure from Dallas, letting Dallas take lower quality chances, keeping them to the outside, and then counterattacking when the time was right. Zach Hyman had a pair of goals, McDavid as well, a pair of goals, and now the attention to this series shifts to how the Oilers get this done as quick as possible. And their defense has been superb in this series. They have done a masterful job the last 2 games of really clamping down, absorbing pressure, and working off of the counter. And you got to give a lot of credit to Stuart Skinner, who has continued to make a few of the saves he's needed to. Not a shutout tonight, but you have to feel pretty good about where the Oilers are at. For everything you need to know about the Edmonton Oilers heading into Game 4 on Tuesday night, be sure to check out Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube.
And thanks to Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers, for that report. And we talked about a few episodes ago where I'd mentioned Connor McDavid. He's racking up the points. He's getting a lot of assists, but he hasn't been as dynamic by his standards as we're sometimes used to seeing. That wasn't the case in this game, especially with the timeliness, I thought, of his goals. He gets what would be the game-winning goal, the second goal of the game, and then the goal he scored just 19 seconds left in the second period, right after Dallas had cut it to 2-1. That is an absolute killer. The Stars feeling a little bit good about themselves, like, all right, we're back in the game, and then you let one go in right before the period, and you feel like, oh, no. So it wasn't just the goals he scored, but when he scored them and how he scored them, that Connor McDavid, I mean, putting on a show and being, one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in the world.
And it's such a great point you make about Connor McDavid, but I actually want to start off before I get to McDavid about why is it important in life to take advantage of your opportunities? Because you just never know when those opportunities may be the door that you need to crack open in order for you to finally burst through. And today was a prime example of exactly just that. Because before the McDavid goal, let's go back to it's a scoreless tie, and there was a questionable call on the ice that left Peter DeBoer, the head coach of the Dallas Stars, completely miffed, as in like, hey guys, I mean, I know this is not a reviewable call, but isn't this a penalty here? And not even long after, just a few seconds later, Evan Bouchard scores the opening goal on an absolute boost bomb from near the point and gives the Oilers a 1-0 lead. And then 36 seconds later, to be exact, Connor McDavid, he scores on a 3-on-1 after he and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins exchanged the puck to set up on an unfettered attempt. And that is the kind of thing that you look at and you say, uh-oh, talk about taking advantage of opportunities. That was it right there. And that's all the Oilers need. And ultimately, McDavid, you talked about how when was he going to, start scoring goals, at the rate that we are accustomed to him doing so during the regular season. We've seen him accumulate the points in the playoffs, but not the goals. But today, it was like, okay, McDavid said, I'm going to turn on the Jets. And he, without question, made the defense of the Stars look bad. And the Oilers run away with this one. But I also want to mention, it wasn't just McDavid in this game. Zach Hyman, who once upon a time scored 50 goals in this league, not that long ago, also had 2 goals in this game. And this was the kind of game that if you're an Oilers fan, you're like, this is exactly what you needed, not just in terms of McDavid scoring 2 goals, Zach Hyman scoring 2 goals, and Stuart Skinner, because we asked on just last night's episode, which Stuart Skinner is going to show up. And the good Stuart Skinner, albeit not with the shutout, but the good Stuart Skinner showed up today as well.
Yeah, that's been the story to me for the Oilers, and I certainly didn't think it was going to happen. Being an LA Kings fan, seeing them in round 1, I thought the Kings had a deeper team. I thought they'd get the better of the secondary scoring. Hasn't been the case. It's carried forward. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a 3-assist game as well in this one. The other guys are stepping up, and they haven't needed McDavid and Draisaitl to be supermen, but they've still been pretty good. McDavid obviously was very good in this one. He came into this game tied with Draisaitl and Mikko Rantanen for the points lead in the playoffs. He now has overtaken both of them. 22 points in the postseason for Connor McDavid. And you mentioned Stuart Skinner. We did see the good Stuart Skinner in this one. His 4 wins, he's now allowed just 1 goal. And you were talking about a delay of game penalty that wasn't called. Looked like the Oilers got away with one, and then you're right after that, 36 seconds apart, 2 goals to take the 2-0 lead. And that went a long way in leading to the victory. Edmonton now 5-1 on home ice this postseason after losing the first 2 games in the playoffs at home, or I should say on the road. They've now reeled off several big wins at home. We do want to check in, obviously, on the other side of this. Let's get a report on the losing side from the host of Locked On Stars.
The Dallas Stars' lack of offense comes back to haunt them in Game 3 as the Oilers went in convincing fashion 6-1. And the score may not be indicative of how Dallas played in the game, but at the same time, the Stars were not good enough once again. They just struggle to find the back of the net, unable to bear down on some of their chances. They were all over Edmonton in the second period, out shooting the Oilers 22-7. And they left the period down 2 goals. Sort of the story of the series so far for Dallas. Fortunately, it's not over yet. The Oilers now take a 2-1 series lead, but Dallas just needs some of their big boys or anybody to start finding the back of the net and generating some offense, because it's nice to get those chances, but it doesn't matter if you're not burying them. And if they do that, they can find a way to even this series on Tuesday night.
Thanks to Joey Erickson, the host of Locked On Dallas Stars, for that report. So the Stars now 2-5 this postseason on the road. They're scoring less than 2 goals per game away from home. They're allowing 4 goals per game on the road. We talked about special teams as well. Dallas in their Game 1 win, 3 for 4 on the power play. In Games 2 and 3, now a combined 0 for 4. He's right. Joey's right. They played well in the second period, but that McDavid goal right before the period, and then they came out and had nothing in the third and just got rolled over. 2-1 is not the end of the world. If they come back and can win this Game 4, now it's best 2 of 3, and you've got 2 of them on home ice. So they're still in okay shape, but this next game is obviously huge. It's got to be a much better effort, and they've got to get as Joey was saying, they've got to get some more contributions from some of those other guys. By the way, Rupe Hintz did not play in this game for Dallas, we should mention. So that was a big loss that they had after the slash from Darnell Nurse. But Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, Matt Duchene, and even Mikko Rantanen, who's been so good this postseason, not have a goal yet in the 3 games of the series. So one of those guys, preferably a couple of those guys, got to step up. A huge game 4 coming up for Dallas.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to point out something that is really alarming to me, at least. In game 3, the Dallas Stars got 1 goal on 36 shots. I want you to just pause for a moment and just let that resonate for just a moment. 1 goal on 36 shots. And you talked about how you need more offensively, especially 5-on-5. You see, I like Peter DeBoer, the head coach, but the thing is, you can't get annoyed when people bring up the fact that the numbers on 5-on-5 have been not great. And the reality is this: when Mikko Rantanen isn't scoring, where is the scoring coming from? And I couldn't agree more with the report that we got from the Dallas Stars, the host of the Locked On Stars podcast. And I just think that at some point you need your other guys to come up, especially Hiskinen and Robertson, and I think, and especially like Thomas Harley and whatnot. It wasn't for a lack of trying, but here's the thing: the Stars, they had a 16-4 edge in the second period in terms of scoring on 5-on-5. They had a good second period and a 9-1 edge in high danger chances. But the problem is that when you're not taking advantage of your opportunities, it wasn't for a lack of effort, as I just mentioned. It becomes glaring. And now the question becomes, who is going to step up offensively other than Mikko Rantanen? Because we talked about it through the first 2 rounds. Rantanen had been the hottest goal scorer in the NHL during this postseason through the first two rounds. But at some point, you knew that he was going to cool down, especially the further deeper the Dallas Stars went in the playoffs. And now we've reached this point. Now, will anyone else other than Mikko Rantanen step up? That we're going to have to wait and find out in game number 4.
Yeah, and for Dallas, they were clearly the better team in the 3rd period of game 1. They were the better team in the 2nd period of game 3. All those other periods, they were either even or they were not the better team. So it's going to take obviously a little bit more than just a couple of good periods so far to try and get them back in the series. But again, Oilers with a big game 3 victory and now lead the series 2-1. Can the Hurricanes snap their long conference finals losing skid and avoid being swept by the Panthers? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even long-term goals. Manage money with your partner because it's smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. All right, coming up on Monday, we have game 4 between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes in Sunrise, Florida. Could be the final game of the Eastern Conference Finals because the defending Stanley Cup champs are leading this one 3-0 and looking very, very strong. We do have some news already to report for game 4 as Pyotr Kochetkov is going to start his 2nd straight game for Carolina. He replaced Frederik Andersen in game 3. Looked pretty good for the first couple of periods, but then the rug got pulled out from him, under him and the rest of the team, allowing 6 goals on 28 shots, 5 of them coming in the 3rd period. Shu, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Rod Brindamore's decision to go with the number 2 goalie once again in a must-win situation.
I don't understand why. I mean, what's preventing Rod Brindamore from going back to Frederik Andersen other than maybe Anderson is injured. But I haven't read or seen anything anywhere to indicate that Anderson's not ready to come back in between the pipes. So the thing I want to also extend my thoughts on is this. If you're the Carolina Hurricanes at this point, I mean, you're at a loss of words, because what else is there to say about a team that thought that they were playing the right way, only to be on the wrong side of the results each and every one of the last 3 games. Game 1, they were defiant. They thought they played well enough to win, and frankly, the Hurricanes they did play well enough to win, but they did not get the W. Game 2, you could sense by listening and watching the post-game conference and the comments from the players that there was a sense of confusion. Like, okay, I don't get it. Like, what more do we have to do in order to try to right this ship? And then after game number 3, at this point, it was like, okay, where do we go from here now? And here's the truth, the harsh truth. You've been outscored 16-4 in this season through 180 minutes of hockey. You spend 40 minutes taking care and being careful and playing the defending champions to the best of your capabilities, and then you turn around, you get outscored 5-1 in the final period of play. What else is there left to say? So if you're Carolina, you're just like anything. You're like grabbing for the emergency brake. You're grabbing for like the emergency exit, like something to prevent this ship from hitting the rocks on shore. And right now, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, you're just praying that some decision is the right decision. But playing Kochetkov in a must-win game for tomorrow in hopes to avoid getting swept by the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions, that is the decision that I'm like, I don't think this is the right one.
Well, as the fan of a team that did the reverse sweep, the last reverse sweep in the NHL, the LA Kings in 2014 were down 3-0, won 4 straight against the San Jose Sharks. I can just tell you, and it's very cliched, but it just you can't think about the hole you've dug. You can't think about, oh my God, we've got to beat this team 4 times in a row. You just have to win one game and stay alive. And then you worry about the next game and the next game. And if you can win a couple in a row, then suddenly maybe the pressure starts to shift and the other team starts to think, oh my God, we can't, what are we doing here? We can't let this opportunity slip away. The problem with that, however, is that the Florida Panthers are not the San Jose Sharks, the team that the Kings beat 4 in a row in the first round of the playoffs in 2014.
Yeah.
And also the LA Kings are not carrying the baggage of 15 straight conference finals losses like the Carolina Hurricanes are.
Exactly.
And you could say, hey, there were a lot of players on this team that weren't a part of some of those teams. But again, going back to my LA Kings, who have lost 4 in a row to the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs, they had players who hadn't played, this year against the Oilers 4 years ago. It doesn't matter. It's a thing until it's not, right? Until you can get over that hump, it's still there, regardless of the circumstances. So for Carolina, it's a lot. Seems like the rock they're pushing up this hill is a lot bigger and heavier than maybe the one the LA Kings had back in 2014. It's going to be very difficult. The Florida Panthers are great. But again, it's about just winning one game. Just win one game and give yourself a chance at playing one more. And you never know what can happen. But it's one game. It's just one game if you can do it. It's not easy, but you got to just win one.
It's going to be a challenge. And if you're the Florida Panthers, you're thinking, hey, remember last year in the Stanley Cup Finals, you're up 3-0. And then and then for some reason you took your foot off the gas and it went all the way to a game 7, which they ultimately won. So I think last year's championship core, they're saying to themselves right now down in Fort Lauderdale or the Miami area, hey, finish it tomorrow night. End of discussion. We're right there. You're 1 win away from going back to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd straight year. Finish them now. You put your foot on the throat and you don't let go if you're the Florida Panthers. And that's the mentality they're going to have to carry tomorrow night. But as far as the Carolina Hurricanes are concerned, I agree. This is a far bigger rock than they could have ever envisioned, trying to ultimately push up the mountain Where right now I'm seeing that rock is starting to actually roll upon those guys instead because of the sheer weight of just the task that is ahead for the Hurricanes in order to come back in this series.
All right, Florida Panthers 1 win away from a third straight trip to the conference finals. We'll see if they can close it out on Monday. We've got another edition of Game Night Q&A. We'll do that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the action with live player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which player is going to show up in the biggest moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next big bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus bet add to the excitement of your winning your first $5 bet? New to FanDuel? It is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Shu, let's close it out with another edition of Locked On NHL Game Night Q&A. We're going to ask each other some questions related to the playoffs this year, and I will go first.
Yes.
If you could add any player that is currently playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Final Four, not named Connor McDavid, who would you add to your Boston Bruins?
Oh, that will be easy. And for me, that guy would be Matthew Tkachuk. Because Matthew Tkachuk, for me, epitomizes exactly what a winner looks like. Someone who obviously has the skill and the gift of being able to score, but his game isn't just only predicated on putting the puck in the back of the net. His ability to forecheck, to play on a hard-nosed defense, getting underneath guys' skin on the ice. And for me, Matthew Tkachuk over the last 3 postseasons now has cemented himself as one of the all-time great playoff performers, I should say. And for me, I think for the Boston Bruins, I think they could use a player like Matthew Tkachuk. If not him, then certainly Sam Bennett. But for me, Matthew Tkachuk above all.
Yeah, it's a pretty good answer. I will have to say, as an LA Kings fan, I can't go Matthew Tkachuk because he has a long-standing feud with Drew Doughty. He also tried to poke Jonathan Quick's eye out with his stick one time. There's too much bad blood. But I'll take the other guy, Sam Bennett. I'll take Sam Bennett from the Florida Panthers because you're right. In the playoffs for a team like the LA Kings who can't get out of the first round, 5 times out of the first round since they won it all in 2014, 5 losses, including 4 in a row to the Oilers. They need some of that sandpaper. They need some guy who knows how to win in the postseason, can be physical, can score, can do all those things. Matthew Tkachuk certainly can do that. But again, too much history with him, so I will take his cousin in Sam Bennett on the LA Kings. All right, you are up. Ask me a question.
Which defenseman, in your opinion, has made the most impactful performance during these playoffs so far?
Well, maybe this is a little bit of recency bias because we saw him in the game today, but it's hard to go against Evan Bouchard. And I know a lot of people are down on his defense, but with Matthias Ekholm out of the lineup for the entire playoffs, he's had to take on a bigger role defensively, had to play against some of the better players again on the other side. And he's held his own. He's not going to be Jacob Slavin, right? But he's done okay. But he also adds that element from the point. You've got McDavid with the speed, you've got Draisaitl with the power, and you got the Bush bomb from the point. We saw it scoring a goal in the game today. 6 goals, 11 assists for 17 points. I think he's the highest scoring defenseman right now in the playoffs. So I think I'd go Evan Bouchard. There are some good defensemen out there this postseason, but I think I would go with Evan Bouchard.
For me, I was gonna go with Evan Bouchard, but you basically took that one. But
I would actually, we can both be right.
I mean, I would agree with Evan Bouchard, but I was actually gonna think about like Seth Jones, because like Seth Jones, in my opinion, and it's not taking anything away from Evan Bouchard, but I thought what Bill Zito did in acquiring him from the Chicago Blackhawks I thought that was massive at the time when they acquired him. This is before the trade deadline, in which that it was going to fortify their blue line, given that Aaron Ekblad was going to miss a significant amount of time due to suspension towards the final 20 games of the season, which isn't into the first couple of games of the playoffs. And I mean, he's been absolutely steady. He has been as good as advertised, if not even better than what he was in Chicago, where Seth Jones even admittedly said that he didn't play his best hockey with the Blackhawks. But now you pretty much like say that Seth Jones has turned back the clock to back when he was a Columbus Blue Jacket, if not even better. So for me, I would go with Seth Jones.
All right, my question for you, and this is kind of one of the cool things about the Stanley Cup playoffs is, you know, you see the other teams when they play your favorite team. So once or twice, depending on, you know, if it's a division opponent or whatever. But when you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, you get to see the same players in multiple games over and over again. And so sometimes you'll see a guy and you're like, wow, I didn't know that guy was that good. Has there been anyone that you've gotten a chance to get a look at this postseason where you really didn't know much about him and you're like, that guy's a pretty good player?
Wow. For me, that's a great question because it actually got me thinking, and I was, thinking back all the way back to the beginning of the playoffs, and I really am gonna go with Ivan Demidov of the Montreal Canadiens. He made his debut during the Stanley Cup playoffs, and there was so much hype about, how is he going to show up? There's so much hype around this 21-year-old kid who no one in North America really knew much about, but I thought he was as good as advertised, especially given that he's obviously a rookie in the NHL, like making his debut in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, next year I think he's going to be a Calder Trophy candidate as well. But I think seeing the early glimpses of him really opened my eyes as to why so many people in Montreal were so excited and fired up to see him make his debut this past season.
I'm going to go with a guy that I really didn't know much about. I knew him because he had a funny name, but I had never really watched him play. And maybe he's not this good. Maybe he's just having a great postseason. But Eetu Listerainen of the Florida Panthers, a third line guy, he's got 13 points this postseason, 4 goals and 9 assists in 15 games. He had 24 points all regular season, and he's got 13 points in the playoffs. So a guy with good size. He can be physical. I guess kind of everybody on the Florida Panthers has to be a little bit physical, but he's got some decent skill. I don't know if he's just having a great playoff, but Eetu Listerainen is a guy that's kind of opened my eyes a little bit. What do you got for me?
I had something for you, but for some reason, the last question isn't loading on my screen, and it's driving me nuts. So I'm going to have to improvise a bit. So here goes nothing, Eddie.
All right.
So, oh, man. So
I think you were going to ask me about the goalies.
Yes. Thank you. Forget the list. All right. Goalies. Which goalie out of the last 4 teams remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs has surprised you, and how?
Well, I would have to say that's actually pretty easy, and it's Stuart Skinner. I know he was the goalie of the team that guided them to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, got him to within a game 7. But he was terrible in the first 2 games against my LA Kings. Calvin Pickard came in, and let's be honest, if Calvin Pickard isn't injured, he's probably still playing for the Edmonton Oilers right now. The Stuart Skinner, I got to give him credit. I don't think he's the most talented guy in the world, but he's pretty mentally strong. His ability to have a bad game and be able to put it behind him and even lose his job and come back and play at a high level, when he's called upon, pretty impressive. So of all the goalies that are still playing, Bobrovsky, Ottinger, these guys are certainly way ahead of Stuart Skinner, you would think. But he's impressed me. I got to give him his flowers. Stuart Skinner is getting the job done for the Oilers.
I would agree, and my answer for the sake of just not being a contrarian completely, but I would say that the goalie that has surprised me so far, these plays out of the final 4 has been like Freddie Anderson. I didn't think his struggles would cause him to not have his job, to not be a starter right now, and for him to be relegated to the bench. So I didn't expect Frederik Andersen to for his performance to be a reason why Carolina is down now 0-3 in the series. It was originally 0-2, but obviously 0-3 now. So for me, I would gotta go with Frederik Andersen.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On NHL Game Night Q&A. Did want to give a shout out to Team USA, who beat Switzerland 1-0 in the World Championships today.
Yes.
First time in 92 years the U.S. has won this event. I had no idea. Tage Thompson scored the only goal, and your boy Jeremy Swayman, 25 save shutout for Team USA. So congrats.
And also a very heartwarming, not just heartwarming, but a little bit of an emotional moment too. The captain, Clayton Keller, brings out Johnny Gaudreau's jersey and drapes it over the championship trophy. And obviously winning it for Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau, Team USA, world champions of hockey.
All right, the Oilers now lead the Stars 2-1 in the Western Conference Finals. Panthers looking to close it out against the Hurricanes with a 3-0 series lead. We are getting ever closer to this year's Stanley Cup Finals matchup. Maybe a repeat of last year's Finals matchup. We shall see. Hey, you got a taste of some of our local experts. Make sure you check out the Locked On show of your favorite NHL team. Get all the latest news and reactions to what's going on with them. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Shukri Wrights. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.